What actually happens to your digestion when your gallbladder is gone? Why do some foods leave you feeling bloated, gassy, or rushing to the bathroom, or even constipated, while others seem to go down just fine? And more importantly, are there foods that can help you feel normal again? Foods that actually support your liver, your bile flow, and your gut, even without the tiny but mighty organ, the gallbladder. In today's episode, I'm breaking down 6 must eat foods that are absolute gold for anyone living without a gallbladder. These are the foods that can help you feel lighter, even more energized, and finally back in control of your digestion.
Gallbladder gone. Now what? Let's heal from the inside out.
Welcome to Gallbladder Gone? Now what? The podcast for Christian women navigating life after gallbladder removal. Hosted by Jamie McCrivey, holistic nutritionist, wife, boy mum, grandma, and a firm believer in God's design for lasting health. Did you know that over 1.2 million Americans have their gallbladders removed every year, and that the majority of them are women? Even more eye-opening is that all gallbladder issues are digestive issues. And poor digestion is at the root of up to 80% of all disease, including hormone imbalances and weight struggles. While Jamie isn't a doctor and this podcast isn't medical advice, she shares real solutions rooted in research, experience, and God's Word. Let's get practical, biblical, and real, one step at a time.
So, I want to tell you a story. I often talk about how we're not given much information about life after getting our gallbladders out. So this was my experience. I went in to get my gallbladder removed, and I remember talking to my doctor, and he goes, "Hi, how are you today?" And I said, "More importantly, how are you?" Because I wanted my doctor to be on top of his game when he was cutting this tiny little organ out of me. And so he said he was doing great. We had a laugh. He wheeled me in to get to the surgical room, and they were getting me ready to put me under. And I remember counting backwards, just like in the shows 10, 9, 8. And I remember vaguely coming out. I felt a little nauseous, and then I fell back unconscious. And then I remember my husband putting me in the car. And I was so confused. I was like, where am I? What am I doing? And my husband tells the story later about how they brought me out of surgery, and then they told him to go get the pain medication. And so he looked at me, he knew I was completely out. He said, "I have some time." So he didn't go slow, but he didn't go fast. And he said he was gone for maybe 15 minutes, went to get the medication, and came back, and they already had my discharge papers and were sending me out the door. And he laughed about it because I was, groggy and didn't know where I was, and he's putting me in the car, and he was shocked that they didn't even let me wake up all the way, let alone give me really, or him, the instructions for post-surgical care, let alone, life after a gallbladder being taken out. And so that really was, I thought that was my story. But the more I talk to women, the more I find that that is their story as well, is way under prepared for what was to come. And so I want to share a scripture with you that I love. It's in 1 Corinthians 10:31, and it says, "Whether therefore ye eat or drink, or whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of God." So as I was learning about how to take care of my body and trying to go, learn from all the struggles I've been having, I started thinking, God has contingency plans. That's something that I love. Things don't shock him. He's not surprised that we're cutting organs out. He's not surprised that I'm sick. And so I knew that somehow he must have a backup plan for me. And so these are some of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you, these little backup plans, these little tips and tricks that I have found over the years. That show that God is still in control, that he still sees us, he hears us, and he's prepared for all the little things that we go through. So as I was learning, I came up with these 6 foods that are God's foods, right? So he planted them, they're here, and they're here for the use of all of us here. But they also have scientific backing as to why they are so valuable to have in our diets. And so I'm going to start out with the first one, which some people um, love and some people don't love. But the first one is beets. Okay, beets, eating one red beet a day is so beneficial. Now, do I always get my beets in every day? I don't, but I do try. So, beets have natural nitrates that open up the bile ducts and increase bile flow. So, we remember that bile is not created in the gallbladder, right? It's created in the liver and it's supposed to drip through into the gallbladder where the gallbladder concentrates it. So when we eat a fatty meal, we get all that bile. Well, now that we don't have a gallbladder, we still need to have this nice flow of bile. And like we've talked about on other shows, when you get the gallbladder out, it wasn't the gallbladder that was the problem, it was the liver. So we are always talking about the liver and gallbladder here. So whether you have a gallbladder or don't, we are still talking about the health of the liver, which is so important. So beets are fantastic for this. Beets also give us more energy and they build our blood, right? And we'll be talking about that. A lot of women, especially those who've had gallbladders out, also tend to be anemic. And so we'll be talking about anemia in the future, so stay tuned. Um, but studies suggest that beets can increase liver production of detox enzymes like glutathione and decongest ischemic livers. So, what does that mean? It means that they help things move through. They kind of clean out, and glutathione is very healing and it goes in and it protects. So, we need glutathione. It's kind of a buzzword right now. And we also need to decongest that liver. There's lots of little like we have our portal vein and we have all these little highways in our liver that can get congested and we can have even liver stones. And so we want to make sure those roads are wide open. So there's the inside of a beet is the nutrient bentane, which is also known as one of the most powerful liver detoxicants and can help us form bile. So again, and we will be talking about even having beet juice is kind of nice to put in when we're kind of going through a liver supporting cleanse. So I don't really suggest cleanses for the liver, although people do that all the time, but they don't open their detox pathways correctly and then they start to feel like crap and they not much changes because they haven't done it correctly. So we'll be talking about that. But the bentane found in is found in the highest concentration in beets and in particular in beet greens. So let's not throw away those beet greens and include them in the diet. So I beets are easy to grow. I like to get them organically. And so I'll do it a little bit differently. So I'll cook the beets or juice the beets, and then I make greens separately and enjoy my greens because I like my greens with a lot of garlic, with some good ghee, which we'll talk about here in a minute, and really support my liver as I do this. The second food, so the first one is beets. The sixth or second most wonderful, amazing, must-eat food is greens. Now, Americans have a really hard time with bitters, and I'm particularly talking about bitter greens right now. And so I had a friend back in Iowa, and it's an older gentleman, and he's such a great guy. He found out he had cancer. And I told him that dandelion greens were really good for cleansing. They're nice and bitter, and it would be beneficial to add them to his diet. And he was like, okay, I'll do that. We live in Iowa, tons of dandelions. And we talked since then, but we really never got back on that subject. It was just kind of in passing. And it was a couple months later, he got his cancer-free diagnosis. And I was like, that is so amazing. So what did you do? What is the th single most important thing that you did? And he goes, what you told me to do. And I said, what do you mean what I told you to do? He said, dandelion greens. He said that he juiced a gallon of dandelion greens and drank it every day. That was straight bitter greens. This man was heroic in my book, but it absolutely cleaned his body out. I'm not saying for people to go do that. I'm saying that's what his experience was. But bitter greens are so important to add into the diet to help that bile flow keep going and it help digestion. It helps hydrochloric acid. Um, these greens include, but are not limited to, kale, chard, collards, arugula. I also like London rocket, which is a common weed. There's a lot of bitters that and dandelion greens, right? And when you first start, it's not delicious. I remember when I first started adding bitter things to my diet, I like sweet. And so, but now I really do crave that bitter. So start little by little, like having a salad and then just adding some arugula leaves and then more next time and then more next time until you really start to enjoy it. Now I just love arugula and I can just sit there and eat it. So that's the second food must eat food that is absolute gold. The third is, so greens are kind of a family, right? And so the third is a little bit of a family as well. And this is fiber. We need fiber. This means beans, legumes, chia seeds, flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds. Even going into the herbal family, we have slippery elm and marshmallow root and licorice. We have the roughage of the greens we just talked about, like the leafy greens, the root vegetables, like we were just saying about the beets. Um, Adding in, we have celery, and so these sweep through. So put them into two main categories. We have a soluble fiber and an insoluble fiber. And so that insoluble fiber, that's those fiber that does not really break down. It's kind of what you would think of celery, that really fibrous. And it goes through and it really sweeps things through the intestine all the way, and it cleans the bile, like helps leach things from the bile ducts. And I mean, their fiber is just so important. And that soluble fiber, the opposite one, also feeds the gut microbiome. And that's something that we absolutely need when we don't have a gallbladder. We need it anyway, but we especially need it when we don't have a gallbladder. And so the high fiber actually helps absorb excess cholesterol in the small intestines, which is great because that actually takes some of the burden off of either not having a gallbladder or a gallbladder that's not functioning very well. So adding these in is one of Anne Hill, who is as a naturopathic doctor, is one of her favorite things to do. So make sure you have that high fiber diet. All right, so then the fourth thing that I'm going to talk about is limited oil intake. So there is a Dr. Nicole Deneza, who is a DC and NTP, who encourages us to, quote, eat some healthy fat and keep your tissues happy and healthy, predominantly leaning on plant fats. Do not overdo it on saturated fats, including coconut oil, because you could induce some leaky gut. So, with fats, it is so important to have those delicious, healthy plant fats, and spend a little extra to get the good ones, the clean ones, those great olive oils. I don't get mine from the grocery store. I get mine from Redstone. I don't get money for saying that. I just really like their products, and I can feel um, the difference in the type of oil that they sell. Now, with that said, that is internal oleation, right? Getting that oil inside. With those of us who don't have a gallbladder or whose gallbladder and liver struggle, we can also do external oleation. And I'll be going deeper into that. But basically, taking a quarter cup of oil, which is a lot, and I sit down in the bathroom, I get a towel that I don't care about ruining, and I self massage, which in Ayurveda we call this an abhyanga, and we oil and oil and oil and oil. It's called external oleation, and then take a hot shower to open up those pores and suck that oil in. And so we can get both internal and external oleation without hurting our digestion, or clogging it. That's the word I was looking for. We don't want to clog it. So we want to eat predominantly plants. It has been proven time and time again that the human diet should contain mostly plants. Plants contain phytonutrients, phyto meaning plant nutrients, and fibers known to heal and detoxify the body. So I had someone ask me the other day, so what kind of diet would you suggest? And I hate to stand on that soapbox, because it's nuanced, right? If I had to choose one, I would say whole food, plant-based, but so many people put that in the vegan category, and it's, to me, they're not the same. Vegan, you can be vegan and still have potato chips and Coca-Cola. Whole food, plant-based, you can also still have a good quality egg now and then, or, some fermented milk kefir, or something that, so it's those things, and even some meat, but they're used more as condiments, whereas whole food plant-based means that the base of your diet is plants. And that's so standing on a soapbox saying you should never have these things is not really my cup of tea. So that's what I suggest, is that we use these plants to detoxify, to heal, to move through, to feed the body. And we start to feel living things give life. And so I like giving my body life. All right. The fourth thing, or fifth thing, that I want to talk about is eating an apple a day. And we've heard that eat an apple a day keeps the doctor away, but there is a reason for this. So eat 1 to 2 apples a day because they're high in what's called malic acid. So this naturally opens bile ducts and it allows bile to flow. So apples are also shown to increase elimination of bile acids into the toilet. So we talked about those bile acids can spill over into the bloodstream and cause a lot of pain. And so if we get those bile acids out of the body and into the toilet, and it's detoxifying our body, we can feel so much better. And it starts to force the liver to manufacture new bile. So we want that new, clean, healthy bile in the body. So eating that apple a day. All right, and the final one is ghee, and that is spelled Ghee. And it's getting more popular. You can even find it at Costco. And so what it is it's clarified butter. So it's butter that has had the proteins removed and cooked down. There is a traditional ghee, and the process of making that is through fermentation and then cooking down, and it's a huge process, which would be great if any of us had the time and the know-how to do that, but this is a great thing to do. So ghee has a little bit of a butter flavor, so adding 1 to 2 teaspoons per day is a great way to encourage bile flow, better intestinal health, and gallbladder contraction if you still have that gallbladder, right? If not, we're still moving that bile through, and it's a really healthy option of oils. And it also, tastes really great when you saute a little bit of vegetables, or sometimes we put it over corn with some good quality salt, and just kind of get that in. It's really delicious. So those are the 6 things, and we'll go over again in just a minute. But there are some things we need to avoid. So some of the things, and I want to do this with a little bit of caveat. So the first thing is minimize or avoid dairy products. This is processed dairy products. Can be really hard to digest. So what we're doing is we're healing the digestion. Once your digestion is healed, you can handle these better. So it's something now that I can add in a little bit more and not have consequences for. I don't have a lot. I use them as condiments. So, like we use just a little bit of ketchup, a little bit of mustard, a little bit of dairy products, right? If you're going to have them in. And I try to get the cleanest ones, and if I can get them raw, or I can even make them myself. So I like make milk kefir, I make my own yogurt, those type of things if I'm going to use them. I don't use them a lot. But I make my own yogurt, strain it a little bit, and I use that as a little bit of sour cream if I want to add it to my bean and rice burritos, those type of things. The other thing is processed grains. So most people will say grains in general, right? Grains, it's either in or it's out. Processed grains are incredibly hard for the body to digest. Now, whole grains are a different beast altogether. They come with the fiber, they come with the vitamin E, they come with a whole array of vitamins and minerals. It's fascinating. I have a whole class on this that you can look up. Maybe I'll put the link in the bio or in the show notes. Um, so with that, but sometimes when we're fixing our digestion, we may need to eliminate these things altogether, eliminate the dairy, eliminate the grains, heal our digestion. That doesn't mean just eliminate. That means eliminate and then heal. That means use herbs and good foods and lifestyle practices that we're going to be talking about so you can heal your digestion. So now when you add these things in, we don't have a reaction. So when my digestion was shot, I eliminated the dairy and the grains because, man, I got constipated. It would hurt my joints. I'd get gassy. I'd get bloated. I'd have to take a nap. I'd have headaches, all of these things. I healed my digestion. Now I make sure to have whole grains and good dairy, and it's not a problem. And even if I go to like a party and someone has something that is processed or whatever, I can have a little bit and it doesn't affect me. So I just like to err on the side of caution of keeping my body healthy and strong, but I don't have the negative consequences I used to have. So, food intolerance is a very common cause of gallbladder problems. So, the digestion was the problem. The gallbladder, again, was not the problem. The digestion that caused liver stagnation that then caused you to have gallbladder problems. So, they took out the gallbladder, but we haven't yet fixed the liver and we haven't yet fixed the digestion. But we'll get to that. We will heal these things so you can get back to feeling great, lose weight, balance hormones, no more headaches, no more fatigue, and start feeling like yourself again. And so those are the things that we want to maybe eliminate for a little bit, but when we bring back the good quality things. Also, we do, processed fats like the saturated fats like McDonald's and those type of things are just going to make it so much harder on our body to heal. So, before we wrap up, let's quickly recap the 6 powerful gallbladder loving foods and habits that we covered today because small, consistent choices truly make a big difference. So, the first one is beets. Trying to eat a beet a day to open up those bile ducts, increase the flow liver of bile, and help support liver detoxification, right? So, rich in liver loving compounds. Number 2, add some bitter greens. Think kale, collards, chard, arugula. More bitter is better, and so kind of get used to doing that. The number 3 things is fiber-rich foods. So again, load up on the flax and chia, legumes. That's my favorite one. Get some beans in there, some root veggies, insoluble fibers like celery and apples that sweep out the toxins, and where the flax and the chia help bind excess cholesterol and excess hormone and get it out of our body so we can create new amazing stuff that helps us feel better. And the fourth one is to eat healthy fats in that moderation. So you can eat healthy fats and then also externally oleate. So we're looking at about 1 teaspoons of ghee per day would be nice and helpful. Eating an apple a day. So that malic acid in the apples helps open the bile ducts and increase bile elimination. So we want to get that bile, that old bile out, new bile in. And then we want to eat a diet of predominantly plants. So these are the plants that have those phytonutrients that heal the body, that build, that clean out, that are just fantastic and naturally support detox and hormone balancing. So reminder is just to minimize dairy, gluten, and processed. These are all processed dairy, processed gluten, processed grains. If you have a really poor digestion, you may have to eliminate them altogether for just a little bit. Dairy can usually be eliminated for about a month, and then we can try bringing it back in. Gluten and grains, we want to leave out for at least 3 months. And if you have one bite, that 3 months starts over because it can have such an inflammatory response. So we like to see if just shifting to whole, unprocessed grains are doable. So we don't have to go through all that. All right. So I would like you to see if you could choose one of these foods every day, even if you just start trying to eat an apple or a beet every day, and then add in some of those um, bitters and really get those healthy fats going. So see what we can do one thing a day. So if you're ready to go deeper and really take charge of your healing, check out my 7 principles to heal digestion and manage weight and balance hormones DIY course. So it's a do-it-yourself course, and it's packed with more amazing information just like this. 20 plus hours of expert guidance, downloadable tools, step-by-step education that you can access anytime, even on the Teachables app. So just click the links in the show notes and join me there or on Facebook, and I will see you and answer any questions that you have. I'm glad that you joined me today, and take care of that beautiful liver of yours. And I will see you next time in episode 6, where we talk about how, yes, how to eat when you've got no gallbladder. See you next time. Happy digesting.
If this episode encouraged you or offered practical insight, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Leaving a review, subscribing, and sharing with even one friend helps more people discover this message, and Jamie is truly grateful for your support. Be sure to check the show notes for free downloads, helpful resources, and a link to join Jamie's private Facebook group for extra support and community that blends practical health with biblical truth. Just a reminder, Jamie isn't a doctor, so always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your health plan.